Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. I'm Junia Doan and thank you for joining us. My guest today is New York-based actress Caprice Benedetti. Caprice made her theatrical debut in The Devil's Advocate opposite Al Pacino. Since then, she's appeared in 30 feature films and countless television roles. Recently, Caprice has been working on a number of independent films, all directed and written by women. Her current role is in the film Most Beautiful Island. Welcome, Caprice. So, I'd like to know how you prepare for a role.
That is a fabulous question. You know, it varies. It depends on the script, the tone of the character, and what's required, whether it's a comedy or a drama or a thriller. You know, I was trained in Meisner, so I'm a real method actor. So, given the amount of time that I'm allowed to prepare and before we shoot, I try to get into the body of the character as much as I possibly can. And it depends. Like my most recent film was very, very quick. We had the meeting with the director, and I was on set within 2 days. So I didn't really have that much time to prepare. But I really spend as much time as I possibly can researching. I think to me that's tantamount, especially in regards to the narrative and the tone. You always have to follow the tone. It's almost like a dance step in a sense. So I can get very moody, very quiet. A lot of times I disappear. A lot of times I fly out of town. And lots of times I just kind of like stay constricted if the character's kind of constricted and allow it to just kind of breathe. And it changes fundamentally once you get on set as well too, so.
Do you get the physicality before you get the mental and emotional? Or
most times I do. I always like to feel, where is this female coming from? You know, what's her socioeconomic background? What is her lifestyle? What does she do? Is she a blue-collar worker? Is she a mom? Is she a businesswoman? Is she an attorney? You know, and you start to follow suit with that. It's almost like it's a full-on dance choreography for me. And then I sit with that, and then I get into the physicality of the character, and then the emotional background and the intellectual capacity, and then it starts to take place.
Sometimes it sounds like you work to find the character rather than the character finding you.
Yes. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. This last project that I worked on, she was a very complicated character. She's a very complicated woman. I mean, we're all very complicated in a lot of different ways, but in this sense, I had to really sit with her and really get into that dark side of the soul and try it on for size and really be with it. It's an interesting process because it's always so different.
In the past, when you've had different roles, and then you maybe see the film or the TV or whatever, years later or a year later, do you re-feel the feelings, or do you go into character, or you say, that's really interesting, did I do that?
That's very funny. That's a really good question. I would have to say most of the time I look back and see, wow, did I really do that? And the choices that I made subtly, did they come across? You know, you always wonder as an actor, did I make the right choice? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Oh, why didn't they go with this particular take? Why did they choose that? You know, as an actor, it's out of your hands. It's really, at the end of the day, it's what's going to be the narrative tone that the director and the producer and the editor want to convey to tell the story. So you do the best that you can, give them so many different options, and then you just let it fly and see what's going to happen. So I'm usually always quite surprised post-production when I see the final product. Like there was a Law and Order episode that just aired the other night, and a friend of mine had called me. She goes, oh my God, I heard your voice, and I ran to the TV, and there you were. And I started laughing, and I said, I just love it when I pop on my friends' TVs. And on the occasion, I'm channel surfing or whatnot, and a movie comes on, and my scene comes on, or something, and I'm like, oh, wow, you know, I did pretty darn good on that one. That one, maybe not so much. But it's a really wonderful retrospective when you get to look at your work live.
From a distance.
From a distance, 20 years, 15 years, even a year later, even 6 months later, because you move on to the next thing, and you let it go. It's, okay, I'm done with that, I move on. You do feel it again.
How do you give veracity? How do you give truth to a performance? Or is that important?
Well, I think it depends on the actor. For me, authenticity and truth is tantamount. I have to, you know, it's a gift and an honor to be able to portray a character, whether it's real life or make-believe. And I think for the audience or anybody, you know, we watch movies and we're affected deeply by films. And it's my responsibility to bring as much truth and transparency, the good, bad, and the ugly, as I possibly can. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it?
Does the camera distort your intention?
Sometimes. It depends on what the cinematographer and the director want to do. Like my last independent film we shot on 16 millimeter. And the director wanted it to look like something out of like a 1970s movie, almost like a Roman Polanski, Stanley Kubrick-esque kind of vibe. So it was on Steadicam, and so it had movement with it. It would circle us when we were in a scene. It was interesting. I don't think it can really distort unless they really want you to be distorted. But, you know, the camera doesn't lie.
Well, they say some people photograph more beautifully or more dramatically
Sure.
or intimidating or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if the camera lighting does that too. But
Sure.
I mean, just from the point of view of
Yeah.
why are some performances so moving and some are not?
Yeah. Well, I think it takes three things. It takes the actor, the director, and the writer. If the narrative is on the page and the emotional blueprint is there for the actor to portray and inhabit, and the director obviously is directing you, and you're all on board, and it serves the narrative, then you get the beauty of lighting, sound, and then the camera.
Have you ever had the experience where you can, never mind that you can, but you say to the director or feel like saying to the director, she wouldn't say that.
Yes, I've done
She
that
would
before.
say XYZ.
Oh, sure.
And how do you get that sense that it's this way versus their way?
You know, it's interesting. I think when you read a script, you know, at the end of the day, it either jumps out to you on the page or it
I
doesn't.
see.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's all about the narrative and it's the quality of the script. If it's not on the page, it's not there. And if it's not there, your performance and physicality and your character study can bring it to life more than what's on the page. Now, if you are in alignment with the director and he allows you some freedom to go there, as well as the writer, usually the writer's always involved as well, and you can come to a happy place. And hopefully if you have time for rehearsal, to go through it and try different things on for size to find the
interesting.
tone, almost like doing a play, that's even better. But that's pretty rare, because usually with films, and especially network TV, it is what it is, you gotta go, you're on a limited budget, and you're on a short amount of time. But there are times when I've said, you know, this line it's not working. It's not authentic to the character. It doesn't work with the tone of the scene. And especially the emotional volatility or vulnerability or insecurity that's required. Yeah, you can get in some really fun moments. But at the end of the day, you always try to find a happy medium. But when the director says, no, we're gonna go this direction, you go with it.
I know.
Because it's the director's.
Their show.
It's their show, so I'm just the tool.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm
Do you
just a
take
tool.
classes at this point in your career?
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
What kind?
you know, I always take like a master workshop. I'll always do like a master scene study. I'll work with other, you know, high-end working actors that are friends of mine, and a lot of times we'll just get some working scripts together and just bounce it off. I mean, you know, it's like a muscle. You always have to be doing it, whether you are taking a class or you're reading, or a lot of times in my apartment, you know, I'll just pick up a few scripts and kind of rework some things, like hindsight. Oh, I wish I could have done this role, you know, now instead of 10 years ago,
Yes.
what I would have done differently. There's always layers that you can keep adding, but you have to keep the muscle moving.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That really is.
It's like yoga. It's a practice.
Yeah, it is a practice.
Totally.
If you had your total desire met, what two productions would you like to do, whether it's film or TV or whatever it is? Or streaming, I understand it's a big thing now.
I mean, you know what's interesting? I really love film. I love the magic of that lens and that sacred space that you have between you and the actor and the director and the cinematographer. There's something incredibly intimate about it that you don't get with network television, or even like things on HBO or Amazon or Netflix or independent things, unless they are coming from a film background. Because it's a quicker production, you don't have as much time. There's a languid, fine art quality to filmmaking that's a little bit more, I don't know,
normal?
sexier. It's just, you can breathe. You can breathe in and out.
The tempo is slower.
The tempo is, especially if you're working...
For characters.
Sure, especially if you're working with a particular actor, say like my experience with working with Oliver Platt, who is an extraordinary character actor. I had an absolute joy, and it was such an honor to work with him because I learned so much in just playing. I mean, we got to work out the scenes over and over and over. It was playful. And there was great beats in between. That's really, I love that.
The learning as working.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, you know, because you can prepare all you want and be ready to rock and roll. And then once you're on the set, everything changes. You don't know what the temperament's going to be of the director, the temperament of the lead actor or actress that you're working with, the tone of the set. Things can get improvised. The writing changes in the minute. So you've got, say, 3 pages of dialogue that you're doing in a scene, and they say, oh, the dialogue's not working, and the writers are going in and they're rewriting. They hand you the new dialogue. You maybe have 5 minutes to go over it, and then boom, you got to do it. So it's always going to be changing, like life.
But that's good practice.
Changes everything.
Yes. So, but just run me and the audience through the close-ups on film versus the close-ups on TV.
Yeah.
Do they ask different things of an actor or actress?
They don't necessarily ask you different things. You know, when you're a working professional, you already know this about TV. So most of the time, TV is either shot in single camera, 2 cameras, sometimes 4 cameras. It depends on the level of production.
Right.
More often than not, it's a 2 camera. But you always know where your key camera is. Hello?
Yeah.
And when you're in a close-up, you really have to really focus, get super calm, because they're either starting on a tight close-up or a 2-shot between you and the other actor, and then they'll come in. So where you know where your key light is and where you're looking at your actor, that's the money, and that's the most difficult thing. Close-ups are so difficult because every little nuance that's false or you're not quite sure, it shows up so large. So you really have to breathe.
How do you keep the intensity of intention, the emotional intention?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing, I think, for any actor, because a working set is so noisy. And especially when they're changing the shot angles and the lights and the gaffers and the grips and everybody's moving around, to stay in character is a constant exercise. So I think it's different for everybody. For me, I've been on set since I was 19, so I'm used to all the chaos, and I can pretty much tune it out. There have been a few occasions where I haven't been able to tune it out, and it totally got me off my mark, and I had to walk off set to regroup.
Yeah,
and you know, it's difficult. Sometimes you can use that frustration and that energy in the scene. It depends on what it's required of you. But my yoga practice is really what has given me an inner serenity in the midst of the insanity.
Tell us about it.
Well, yoga is about breath and about being in the moment, regardless of what's going on around you, to be in it and not of it. I think that's the ultimate challenge of the spiritual warrior. And as an artist, I'm just here to show you what it is to be human, the good, bad, and the ugly. And to do that on set is a full-on yogic practice, and that's where the breath and meditation and centering yourself really comes in. That has helped me tremendously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, you started as a model.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And were you wise enough to do yoga then?
No, not at all. I was an athlete, which is another form of yoga.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a track and basketball athlete, and then I got discovered by a scout from Milan and Seattle, and
How do you get discovered by a
I took,
scout in
it's so
Seattle?
funny. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? No, I took a gap year off, between high school and college, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and all my friends already knew, and they were already off to the college, and I thought, I'm gonna take a year off. I'll work, get some money, and figure out what I want to do, because I had so many different interests. I always wanted to act, but I was terrified of it. And so I put it on the shelf. And my whole family's been quite artistic. My grandmother was a singer. She sang with Tommy Dorsey on radio. My grandfather was a singer. My mom was an actress. My father is his own version of a George Carlson stand-up comedian. I think somebody's always danced, sang, acted, or played music for their food, in typical Italians of some sort. So I took the gap year, and I was working at Nordstrom's in the flagship store in Seattle. And I was in sales, and Jim Nicholson, who was the general manager at the time, he goes, I want you to become a buyer. And so I was like the #1 salesperson while I was there. And next thing you know, I'm running around in a linen suit, my little clipboard with my private clients and my pearls, and there was a scout cruising around, and he had long hair and a ponytail and was wearing really cool 80s Wayfair glasses and a shiny suit, and he just so looked like a European who didn't belong in Seattle. And
yes,
he kept chasing me around in the store saying, I'm a scout, my name is Marco Micheletti, and I'm scouting for elite models and Ford models, and I think you could do really well. And I'm like going, get out of here, I'm not interested in that. But a couple of my girlfriends, they kind of corralled me and they kind of tricked me, and we ended up showing up at his hotel with his wife, and they just wanted to take a couple of pictures. And I said, just let me put some hair and makeup on you, and let's just take a couple shots, I think you've got something. And I went, all right, I did it. And we got the photos back, and back then we had telexes, and he telexed the agencies in Milan and Paris, and they said, bring her over right away. So we had a meeting with my mom and my dad, and I was blown away by the photos. I didn't think I was photographic. Because all the models were like Christy Brinkley and blonde, blue-eyed.
Different.
Totally, and this is 1984, 83, so it was a different time. And he goes, there's a whole new look coming about, and you're kind of ethnically ambiguous. And I said, what are you calling me, the United Colors of Benetton? And he goes, exactly. So they said, listen, come with us for 6 months. There's going to be 5 girls, 5 guys, and they scattered all from Northern California, Oregon, Seattle, and Vancouver. And ironically, within the first 2 weeks, I got signed by a big agency, and then I got the Giorgio Armani campaign. And then they whacked off all of my hair, and next thing you know, I was traveling the world and got signed by Eileen Ford, and I was a Ford model, and I was zooming around the world and doing YSL and Chanel and Valentino and doing the whole thing. Who would have thought?
Believable.
Completely. So much for becoming a buyer at Nordstrom's.
You read so much about the hazards of being young and being a model.
Yeah.
I mean, illicit drugs and
Sure.
other things.
Yeah.
How did they protect you from that?
They don't.
They don't?
They don't. You protect yourself from it. And especially if you come from a good family.
Did your mother go with you?
No. I was 18, almost about 19. And they goes, you know what? You've got a good head on your shoulders. Go. And it gave me an opportunity to go back to Italy and see my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family. And I never had a problem. One, I think it's because I was an athlete and I was very disciplined.
Yes.
Totally.
Let's hear about that.
Yeah, I think I met the girls from my 80s generation were very smart, and they all came from great families, good education, and most of them were athletes. Back then, it wasn't Photoshop. You had to look good, and you had to exercise, and you had to be professional, especially if you were an Eileen Ford girl. She demanded it.
Did they require you to lose weight? You always read
No, I was always naturally thin. I was one of the lucky ones. I think, especially in the 80s, you had so many different types of shapes. You had big curvy girls, you had very naturally skinny, wafy girls. all different sizes, shapes, and everything kind of were the deal. Now it's very different. It's pretty unhealthy.
You know, you have a lot of passion for acting.
I love it. Oh, are you kidding? I was like meant for it. It's fantastic.
But here you are married, so you're now to an artist.
Exactly.
And how do you integrate those two worlds or those two time requirements?
That is an excellent question. Well, it has been a 7-year process. You know, Eric and I, we just recently got married a year and a half ago, but totally we've been together 7 years. And dealing with an artist who's a contemporary abstract guy, who is more of an introvert, and you know, all he needs is his graphite and his charcoal and his drawing board, and he can create. Me, I need a team. I need the writer, I need the director, I need the other actor, I need the whole thing. And I'm an extrovert. So I talk, he's intuitive. It's kind of funny. So it works.
Right.
It really works. He's very grounded in his way, and I'm very grounded in my way. So it's been a process of allowing each other space to do each other's art. So he says, "Baby, what's going on?" I said, "Listen, I've got a massive audition and I need to rehearse." He'll vacate out of the apartment, or I will go to a studio or to a friend's apartment and we'll rehearse. Or if he's working on a big install and he needs just the pace and the peace in his house, I'm like, I'll disappear. I mean, I'll go hang out with some friends for a few hours, or I'll take off and go stay with friends on, you know, in the Hamptons, or I fly to California and like go be alone for a couple of weeks. We have learned to find a communication of when we need our solo time to prepare for our work. And it's been really cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah, it is.
One thing, it makes you respect your own. I mean, you recognize and put yourself on a deadline, a different pace, because you have somebody else to consider.
Oh, completely. And that's a very different thing, because, you know, I didn't move in with him until 6 months before we got married. So, you know, I was used to having my one-bedroom apartment, and he had his art studio, and we found a really great pattern until we were actually on top of each other 24/7. And we found how it didn't work. Especially for me, unfortunately, as an actor, you get these last-minute meetings. So-and-so director's in town for 2 days and he wants to see you. And next thing you know, I have 15 pages that I have to have memorized and be ready, and I get the call at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and I have a 10 a.m. Audition with the director. It doesn't give me much time. Especially if we have something already scheduled and or he needs to be in the house. I've found a way now how to make it work.
How?
I will usually disappear. I have a couple of, I call safe spots, that I can go to when he's in the middle of doing something and there's no space for me. And so I will take off and I will go there. I have my little private zone areas where I rehearse. But I can't tell you where it's at.
Well,
it's my own little secret private Idaho.
Is there a sense of competition at any time?
No, not at all.
Because you're different fields, or why?
You know, it's so funny. It's like I've always been, you know, attracted and in relationships with creative artists, or on the other side of the commerce side that supports the artist, whether it's a producer or a writer or finance or whatnot, or, you know, another actor, director, photographer, or something like that. But it's interesting. There's no competition with Eric and I, which I found was so like a breath of fresh air, because it was the last thing I wanted was just to deal with that, as I've dealt with it before in my 20s and 30s, and it never really worked. He's very different. He's a very different artist. He's a very compassionate and very thoughtful and considerate human being, as well as he's very linear and he's very regimented and he's very organized in regards to his work. And he understands the process, because he's watched me go through my process and he totally respects it. So it's a mutual respect of space when you need it. It's fantastic. I'm just blown away by it. I feel very, very, very lucky.
Sure. No, because most people say, who comes first?
Yeah. No, and it's true. I mean, I've experienced that before in my 20s and my 30s, even my 40s. But I think also it's because, you know, Eric and I are, you know, I mean, I'm in my 5th decade and he's just about to approach 50 in May, and we're older and we're wiser and mature, and we've been there and done that, and I think that makes a big difference too.
Yes, I think it takes living to get.
Yes, it does.
Enough experience and enough memory and enough knowing you can handle things in a better way.
Yeah, completely. I couldn't have said it better.
Speaking personally.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, I am Italian. I do get a little loud, but.
Right.
But, you know,
when someone blows,
it's a respect thing.
How do you handle anger?
I don't have a problem with it. Anger doesn't bother me at all. I mean, to me, it's just one of the natural human reactions. And I come from a Roman background, so I grew up with it. Just because someone's talking loud and the hands get bigger and wider doesn't mean that they're angry. And that's my cultural background. I think for Eric, because he's got the German,
Right.
the Alsatian, French, Scottish, Irish in him, and coming from Wisconsin, they're very reserved.
Right.
And, they are
So
more
who
interior.
makes up?
We both do.
So both can say, "Oh, blew it," or I'm
There's times we've gotten into a tussle, and I have a tendency sometimes to blow a little bit more steam than he does. But I'm just getting it out of my system. And now he's gotten used to it. He goes, "Oh, you're not yelling at me, you're just talking loud." I'm like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry, I just needed to blow off steam, sorry if I got a little aggressive, it had nothing to do with you." And he understands it now. But in the beginning, the first couple of years, he was like, "Wow." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I'd be like tugging on him. I'm like, "Come on, share something with me. I know it's all locked in there." So I'd poke and prod and see what's coming out of him.
What would happen?
Well, then, the German barbarian would come out. And it was fantastic. I'm like, there you are. Because he's very kind and he's very sweet and he's very sensitive. But he's a big guy, I
is.
mean, he's like a Northern Woods, Wisconsin, California redwood, Walks
so
softly, carries a
descriptive.
big stick, and he's very patient. But we have a free-flowing emotional expression with each other. And now he's learned to feel safe in expressing his frustration or his anger or just all of it now. And I just kick back and I really enjoy watching all the colors of him coming out now, as opposed to holding it all in. So it's been, he doesn't realize it, but he's been in a master acting class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caprice. So we've learned a lot today. First of all, acting is all about allowing you to experience life, the range of life, the range of emotions, the dilemmas, the challenges, and the joys. Secondly, that you heard just recently about the marriage dynamic, to be able to be freely expressive, but not really engaged with the static. It's also a great skill to learn, not only in marriage, but in every other kind of way. She talked about her preparation, which is physical and then emotional and spiritual, and how your character has its own, words to say, but it's better if you have a director and a writer who is sympathetic to that. And that goes whether you're in acting or any other field. Find the right team who vibrate well with you. Also, I was really taken with the fact that she was really a strong athlete, because that gave her a sense of confidence in the early kind of days when she started modeling, that maybe those of us who aren't athletes may not have, and that she continues that through yoga, which gives you, as she put it, not in the moment, but of the moment. And we can always sort of detach, as they would say, to do that better and stay sort of calm and centered and with the ability to choose which way you want to be in life with this particular situation. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week. Please go out and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know. Thank you again, and thank you, Caprice.
Thank you, Junia. It was a pleasure.
Oh,
Absolute
my God,
pleasure.
I'm just so interested. Oh.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadownsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadownthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.